In today's video, I will be talking about the very disgusting and just all around sad case of Dylan Redwine. I first remember hearing about this case a few years ago while scrolling through YouTube, and some Dr. Phil clips came up. While on the show, Dylan's parents, Mark and Elaine, were both talking about Dylan's disappearance. Now that everything has come out, this case is 10 years old, just to know what happened to Dylan is terrifying, horrible, and just all around disturbing. And the person who did this to Dylan is a sick, disgusting, and evil person. This is the story of Dylan Redwine. Before I get any further into this video, I'm Courtney Elise, aka Court Crimes TV, and welcome to my channel. If you happen to enjoy, please like, subscribe, and comment. Let's get into the video. Dylan Redwine was a 13-year-old boy born February 6, 1999 to parents Elaine and Mark Redwine in Durango, Colorado. His parents, Elaine and Mark, got married in 1989, and they eventually ended up having two sons named Corey and later on Dylan Redwine. In 2007, after 18 years of marriage, Elaine and Mark decided to divorce. They were constantly arguing, they were constantly going back and forth, they couldn't agree with anything, and just with all this arguing, it was an unhealthy household to raise two boys in. Now, this divorce was not amicable at all. At least not on Mark's end. Mark was very, very, very nasty, petty, and bitter during the entire divorce process. Mark had it in his mind that, if I'm not going to be happy, Elaine is not going to be happy either. Mark wanted full custody of both of his children, but thankfully, Elaine ended up getting full custody of both of their sons. Once Elaine got full custody of her sons, Elaine packed up everything, she got her two boys, and they moved to Colorado Springs while Mark decided to stay back in Durango. Mark did, however, have visitation rights, and since Dylan was a minor, Corey was over 18 obviously, since Dylan was a minor, Dylan had to go and visit his father. Now, Dylan hated going to visit his father. Dylan used to always confide in his older brother. Dylan looked up to his older brother, and he would always tell his older brother, Corey, how much he hated going over to his dad's house. He said every time that he would go over to Mark's house, that Mark was still very bitter over this divorce, that Mark would constantly talk bad about his mom, about Corey, and he hated going over there. He just wanted to spend time with his dad. But his dad was so fixated on this divorce and over his mom moving on from him, he just couldn't handle it. And Dylan hated the fact that his father was talking about the two people he loved so much. I can personally understand where Dylan is coming from with this because my mom and dad divorced when I was 4. But I'll get into that at the end of this video about my opinions towards this. As you can obviously imagine, this would strain his relationship with his two sons. So I guess, trying to loosen the tension between him and his two sons, Mark decided to take both of his sons on a road trip. In 2011, this is when the three of them, Mark, Dylan, and Corey, all went on this road trip. Now, in the beginning, the road trip was fun. Everyone was having fun. Everyone was getting along. It looked like a typical father-son bonding type of relationship going on, and all was going well. Now, during this road trip, they decided to go stay at a motel, and Mark decided to take a nap. While Mark was sleeping, Dylan, being a typical 12-year-old little boy, preteen, decided to sneak past his father and get his father's laptop. While on his dad's laptop, Dylan saw some very strange and weird pictures of his dad. I'm assuming not understanding and not processing what he's looking at, because he was only 12 years old at this time. Dylan, he goes and gets his brother Corey, and he's like, Corey, I need to show you something. Like, he's sneaking past his father, like, I need to show you something, come see. So his brother Corey stops whatever he was doing, and they sneak past their father while their father's sleeping, and they go into the bathroom and lock it. This is when Dylan shows Corey these pictures. Now, I'm not gonna post these pictures on this channel because I know for a fact, even though I don't have a lot of followers, I don't have a huge following, I know for a fact that how graphic these pictures are, YouTube would delete my channel, and I work hard on these videos, so I don't want my channel to be taken down. These pictures pictures are disgusting. And if you want to see them, you can go on Google and just look them up. In these photos, Mark is dressed up in women's lingerie and he has on a wig. You know, he has on a bra and he has on a wig, and he's posing in these pictures. Other pictures show Mark while still in this lingerie, him in a diaper. In these diapers, like he's taking pictures of him wearing these diapers. With these diapers on, it shows his feces just seeping out the sides of the diapers. Like, it's literally filled with poo. The pictures also show Mark eating the stuff that's in these diapers. Like, it's disgusting, okay? I'm telling you, these pictures are just absolutely disgusting. It shows Mark eating the feces in the diaper, and it shows him with it all over his face, and he's just posing with... Y'all, it's disgusting. It makes me want to throw up just talking about this, just explaining these pictures to you so you can imagine what these pictures actually look like, okay? And you can imagine what a 12-year-old little boy is thinking when he's looking at his father, who is a burly man with a beard and everything, dressed up in women's clothes, with a diaper on, using the bathroom on himself and eating it. Ugh. Now, after seeing their father like this, Corey and Dylan lost all ounce of respect they had for their dad. Mind you, Dylan and Corey did not like their father to begin with. But you know, this trip was supposed to kind of mend their relationship with their dad. But after seeing their dad eating his feces and wearing women's clothing and pooing on himself, sorry, but I mean... This is what these pictures show. After seeing their father doing this, what little respect they had for him was gone. Obviously, in complete disgust of their father, Corey takes his camera or his phone and takes pictures of these pictures on the laptop. I'm guessing Corey took these pictures to hold on to later on confront Mark with them. You know, you're talking bad about me. What about you? You're sitting here eating yours. Once Corey took these pictures, they vowed to each other that they were gonna keep quiet about it and they were just gonna continue this trip. They couldn't say anything. They couldn't confront their dad about it because they're alone with him on a road trip. Time goes on, and at this point, Mark literally has zero relationships with his son. It's gotten so bad that Corey doesn't even call Mark his father. Corey just calls him Mark. Like, he doesn't want any association with this man at all. Dylan, on the other hand, is still despising his dad, and he's still hating the fact that he has to go over to his dad's house. He hates it. He hates going over to his dad's house. They have no type of relationship. There's no type of bonding. His dad doesn't even try to interact with his child. He hates it. Mark, knowing that Dylan does not like going to his house, Mark still forces Dylan to come over. You know, Mark was still bitter over this divorce. Like, get over it. You know, Elaine does not want you anymore. But he's still bitter over the divorce. He forces his son over just to spite his ex-wife. He knows Elaine wants her son over at her house, but just because he can't stand his ex-wife anymore, he puts the children in the middle of it and makes Dylan come over. In 2012, during the Thanksgiving holidays, Dylan had a court-ordered visit to his father's house. Dylan, once again, like every other time he was due to go to his dad's house, he was making it very clear that he did not want to go. But because Dylan was a minor, Dylan had to go. On November 18th of 2012, Dylan flew out to Durango, Colorado to visit his dad. Security cameras actually catch Dylan getting off the plane and walking through the airport to go meet his father. Once he landed, he texted his mom, and you can see in these text messages that Dylan was not happy to be there. But his mom just encouraged him to have fun, to try to have fun, and he'll be home in no time. Once Mark picked Dylan up, they went to Walmart, and on security camera at Walmart, you can clearly see there's no type of connection whatsoever between the father and son. No bonding at all. However, the only type of communication Dylan and his father did have was when Dylan went up to his dad and showed him a text message saying, "Can I go to my friend's house?" Now, Dylan isn't even at his dad's house yet, but before they can even get to his dad's house, Dylan is already asking, can he go sleep by his friend's house? Mark obviously shut that down and was like, no, you're staying with me. I don't understand parents like this. It's obvious your child does not like you. Like, he's already making plans friends to not even be at your house before he even gets to your house, but you force him to go with you anyway. Make it make sense. Mark was doing this simply out of spite. You know, he knew he wasn't going to be with his child, but he was just doing this out of spite to take his son away from his ex-wife. On the night of November 18th of 2012, they make it back to Mark's house, and the last type of communication Dylan had outside of his parents was to a friend that lived up in Durango, Colorado, that they were going to meet up the next morning. That was the last time anyone ever heard from him. On the morning of November 19th of 2012, Dylan's friend texted him asking him where was he, to which he received no response. Mark claimed that on the morning of November 19th of 2012, he had left early that morning to go run some errands, and when he was leaving, he saw Dylan sleeping on the couch. He said that when he came back home later on that evening, Dylan was nowhere to be found. Mark said that he just assumed that Dylan was out with friends and that he didn't worry too much about it, that he'd be home later on. Not too worried about his 13-year-old child not being home and not having any type of communication with him. He said he went to sleep and figured that when he woke up, Dylan would be home, but Dylan wasn't. Mark said this is when he took it upon himself to go and search for Dylan, and while searching for Dylan, Mark texts Elaine saying, "Hey, have you talked to Dylan? I haven't heard from him or seen him all day." Obviously irritated with Mark being so nonchalant about their child not answering anyone, not calling anyone. Mark didn't call police at this time either. He just took it upon himself to go and look for his child. Elaine takes it upon herself to call police and report her child missing. After calling police, Elaine jumps into her car immediately and drives all the way to Durango, Colorado, to Mark's house. The investigation begins, and Mark is still saying, "Oh, you don't have to worry. You know, Dylan is just out with some friends. There's no need to panic." Like, come on, bro. Your child, your 13-year-old child is not calling anyone. He's not answering anyone. And you're so nonchalant about your child not responding to anyone, and you're just saying he's out with some friends. It's dumb. Elaine, on the other hand, is like, no, like, Dylan would have called someone by now. Dylan, like I said in the beginning, Dylan was very close to his mom and to his older brother. Elaine would have been talked to Dylan by now. Dylan would have obviously answered back to his mom or to his brother, but there's no type of communication whatsoever. News is now out about Dylan's disappearance, and one of his friends up in Durango is texting Dylan saying, "Dude, where are you? Everyone is looking for you. Your dad is looking for you. Where are you?" An official search party starts, and they search everywhere. They search the woods, they search his house, they search his dad's car, they search everywhere, and he is nowhere to be found. According to Elaine and Corey, everyone is looking for Dylan. Everyone except for Mark. Mark still isn't too worried about his child missing. You know, Mark is even doing interviews with the news, acting concerned about Dylan's disappearance.
What's it been like?
Well, it's been a tough time for all of us. I know. I know that it's been difficult on me, and I can only imagine how difficult it's been for his mom and his brother and his family over in the Colorado Springs area. And, you know, we're doing everything we can to try to find Dylan, and we want to keep the focus on finding Dylan. And, you know, I've been working with the investigators to make sure that, you know, all the bases are being covered on that end. And, you know, that's pretty much where I'm at with that. I mean, I'm doing everything I know how to do.
But everyone is now starting to question Mark's actions. After a few weeks into this investigation, police make a statement and say this is now officially a criminal investigation. They ruled out the possibility that Dylan could have ran away. I'm assuming Mark tried to say, "Oh, you know, Dylan didn't like me, so he probably just ran away." But they ruled that out because Dylan's phone was inactive. Still no one has heard from him, and there's no possible clues that could have led to this being remotely a possibility. Police start to turn their attention to Mark. They search his home, they search his vehicle, they search all around his property. The media questions Mark about why the police is suspicious of him, and this is when Mark starts to become extremely defensive.
And that's where Pete Klismet comes in. The retired FBI profiler joined forces with the La Plata County Sheriff's Office, and he zeroed in on a person of interest. Initially, no one would say who it was, but now it's been revealed. Mark Redwine.
You know, it's just comforting to know that La Plata County has named him the person of interest.
Dylan's mother, Elaine Hall, has always had suspicions about whether her ex-husband played a role in her son's death.
Back to these pictures. Elaine knows about these pictures. I'm assuming Dylan and Corey showed Elaine these pictures. And while Corey is talking to Elaine about these pictures, Corey starts to get a really bad gut feeling within him. He starts to think his dad is acting so weird and so carelessly about his child being missing. He starts to think, oh my God, did my dad do the unthinkable? You know, I know my dad is a complete disgusting piece of trash, but did he really do this? You know, does he have something to do with my brother's disappearance? You know, he just has this weird gut feeling that his dad is somehow involved with Dylan's disappearance. The search for Dylan went on for the next 7 months with no leads whatsoever. While this search was going on, this is when Mark, Elaine, and Corey all go on to the Dr. Phil show. And on this show, Corey is just calling out his father left and right, saying, you aren't looking for your son, you're acting weird, you're just putting on a facade. And Mark, being so arrogant and cocky, is like, what makes you think that I did something to your brother? And Corey is like, you know why. It's just a whole back and forth ordeal. But Corey is keeping his foot on his dad's neck the entire time, which I love, by the way. The Dr. Phil show offers to give Mark a lie detector test, to which Mark agrees. On national television, he agrees to it. But suddenly, he says, you know what, let's take it another day. I don't feel right today. The next day comes, Mark is all hooked up to the lie detector test, and as they're about to start questioning Mark, Mark says, I can't do it. I don't feel good. I don't want to take it anymore.
You take a polygraph.
I will take a polygraph.
Mark Redwine told Dr. Phil he would take the test to prove he had nothing to do with the disappearance of his son Dylan. It came after some bold accusations from his ex-wife and older son.
What do you think's going on here?
I think Mark has something to do with it. I think he's either got him heading out or, you know, done something and disposed. I strongly think that he's involved.
Why?
He hasn't done a single thing since Dylan has been gone. I do believe that Mark took Dylan to punish my mom and essentially hurt her.
I'm not involved in this. No matter how it comes across, whether it be to you or anybody else, I'm not involved in this. And I have a hard time dealing with this. I struggle with this every day. And for months now, I got Corey and Elaine pointing their finger at me.
But when it came time for the test, Mark asked for a day delay. Then, the next morning, just when the test was getting started, Mark said he didn't feel well, an automatic disqualifier.
Now, your child is missing. You are the last person to have seen your child alive. You should be jumping through hoops to clear your name of anything that has to do with your child's disappearance, but you refuse to take a simple lie detector test to clear your name. It's suspicious. You know, detectives are just looking at Mark like, none of your excuses is making sense. Nothing you're telling the media is adding up. It's just weird. Also, detectives get some shocking information about Mark from Mark's ex-wife, not Elaine, but Mark was married before Elaine, and his ex-wife tells detectives that Mark told her while they were married, they were out and about doing something. Mark told her that he knew how to kill and get rid of a body without anybody ever knowing. She said she always remembered it because no one just ever comes out the blue and tells anyone this. And when she heard Dylan was missing, she had to tell police about this because she knew her ex was crazy and she knew she just couldn't sit with this on her chest in order for police to kind of start to get some information about what's going on. She also said Mark told her he knew trails, ATV trails, that no one else knew. On June 27th of 2013, Dylan's partial remains were found. They were found in the woods about 10 miles away from Mark's house.
The search for missing Colorado teen Dylan Redwine has come to an end, and it's not the end anyone was hoping for. Today, sheriff's officials confirmed that items found during a 5-day search in the mountains include the bones of Dylan Redwine. He was 13 years old when he went missing back in November near Durango.
Detectives couldn't immediately come up with a conclusion as to how Dylan died. They only found his partial remains. His skull was nowhere to be found. Mark put the thought out there that, maybe an animal got to him. Maybe a bobcat or a bear got to him. And that's how, he was killed. He was just trying to take all the tension off of him, because I'm telling you, people were looking at him like, you got something to do with this child's death. You got something to do with this child's disappearance. After finding Dylan's remains, detectives officially ruled this as a homicide. They eventually find Dylan's skull, which was found not too far away from where his body was found. They determined that Dylan died of blunt force trauma to the head. Now, you can only imagine what Dylan's mom and brother is going through right now. They knew Dylan hated going with his dad, but due to the courts, she had to send her child up there. She had to. Despite what her child was telling her, I don't like going with my dad. I don't want to go there. She had to follow the law and send him up there. And you can imagine the guilt she probably held, which is not her fault. She's just following what she has to go by. You can only imagine what she's going through mentally, that her child has been found dead while he was in the care of his father. Detectives, even though they were searching everywhere else, they were also still investigating Mark. And the evidence that they had against Mark was crazy. When they originally searched Mark's house, they found blood on Mark's clothes that matched Dylan's blood. They found Dylan's blood on the couch. They found it on the table. They found it on the floor. They found it all over the living room, and again on Mark's clothes. Mark tried to say that the blood that was found all over the house and on his clothes was from Dylan having a bloody lip, and also that he cut his finger. This is how dumb Mark is, okay? What type of cut did your child have that he has blood on your clothes all over the living room? What type of cut was that? Did he cut his finger off with an axe or something? Like, how does that even make sense? It doesn't. Like all the other lies Mark has told. Also, neighbors told police that they saw Mark driving his ATV down the same trails where Dylan's remains were found. In July of 2017, Mark was arrested and charged with second-degree murder.
Well, I'm trying to understand what exactly is going on.
Okay. Before we get going here, I do got to let you know I am equipped with the body-worn camera. It records both audio and video. Okay. Have you been read your Miranda rights yet?
No, I have not.
Okay, let me make sure I get those read to you so that I'm trying to answer all the questions you have. But because you're in handcuffs and because you're in the back of a police car, I do want you to know what your rights are too.
I haven't done anything for me to have my rights.
Okay.
Mark was found guilty of killing his 13-year-old son and sentenced to 48 years in prison.
His family stood up for him in court, addressing the man who killed him, Mark Redwine, Dylan's own father.
You knew where Dylan was the whole time we were looking for him.
Ever since Dylan went missing, the community has rallied around this family, searching alongside them, but the now convicted killer was never there.
This crime is aggravated on so many levels. At every turn, at every opportunity, Mark Redwine has maximized and prolonged the suffering of everyone involved in this case, especially Dylan's family, but also this whole community.
Because of those aggravating factors, Dylan's mom, Elaine Hall, and brother, Corey Redwine, asked for the maximum sentence. The judge agreed.
You still take absolutely no responsibility for what you did to Dylan. I have trouble remembering a convicted criminal defendant that has shown such an utter lack of remorse.
Redwine has called the case a sham trial. He plans to appeal and did not address the court during his sentencing. 48 years for killing his own son in a case that took years to finally find justice.
Now, at first I was like, 48 years is not a lot, but Mark is like 50-something years old. So by the time he gets out of jail, by the time his sentence is served, he's going to be 99 or something. So, I mean, he's going to die regardless in prison or shortly thereafter. The motive behind Mark killing Dylan is because Dylan confronted Mark with those pictures. Dylan was so sick of Mark constantly bashing his mom and his brother that Dylan was like, what about these pictures? I'm going to show these pictures to everybody. And Mark did not want his little secret, his disgusting, dirty little secret out. And when confronted with these pictures in the court, Mark said that those pictures were photoshopped. You can't photoshop them types of pictures. I'm sorry, but you cannot photoshop those pictures. All in all, Mark is a disgusting human being. And these are my opinions about Dylan constantly saying he does not want to go to his dad's house. Like I said in the beginning, I could understand where Dylan is coming from by saying he's tired of hearing his dad constantly bash the people he loves, the people that's taking care of him. Because my dad used to do that to me. My mom left my dad when I was 4 years old. She divorced him after 21 years of marriage. And she never withheld me or any of my siblings from our dad. We chose not to go with our dad because every time we would go with him, he would constantly bash our mother. My mom had full custody of all of us. My dad didn't have any type of visitation rights, but my mom still allowed us to go with our dad. But we, as children, decided not to go with him because my dad just could not get over my mom. And still to this day, me being 28 years old, my dad still talks bad about my mom. He just cannot get over the fact that my mom has moved on. And I tell him, I'm like, get over it. You know, stop talking about her. My mom does not talk about you at all, but I can understand why Dylan did not want to go with his dad for that simple reason. And also, I don't understand why if a child is saying he does not want to go with their parent, why the courts do not listen to this child. A child is not saying this because of any old reason. A child is saying this because they don't feel comfortable with a particular parent and they should listen to this child. But unfortunately, they didn't, and it cost Dylan his life. It cost the mother her baby. It cost a brother their baby brother. And now Mark is sitting in jail for pretty much the rest of his life. Rest in peace, Dylan. I'm sorry your piece of trash dad did this to you. Rest in peace.